Over the years, I have noticed some handy rules come forth for both players and the organizers to follow, but these rules have not been written down anywhere, and I would say these are my 10 commandments, if you will, for RP games that everybody should keep in mind in order to maximize their enjoyment and their experience from the game. So my first rule is that there are no winners in roleplay. The winning in roleplay Stellaris is when everyone involved had fun and wants to do it again. Some people like me play it not to just have fun, but to challenge themselves on a new front of the game. With the inclusion of RP, you cannot just keep going to wars, because now wars have severe diplomatic consequences and the galaxy will view you as an aggressor and you will have a lot of other people getting involved later on, so you must be smarter. This is the experience that I'm trying to get, but at the end of the day, what is important is that everybody wants to have fun and wants to do it again. The second rule that I have, if there is nothing worth writing happening in your empire, write some internal drama or news bulletin to keep yourself and others immersed in your empire. This is pretty straightforward. Oftentimes there just will not be anything interesting happening, just, self-explanatory. Rule number 3, there is no such thing as too much RP, but do not strain yourself to write RP. Try to find a balance between how much others are writing and how much you are comfortable with. If you prefer to write a lot of backstory and stories, some people might find that as a lot of unnecessary information dump. Or vice versa, if you do not know what you're doing and are not comfortable with roleplay, a lot of people are not comfortable with roleplay, and that is okay. Just try to find a balance between how much the others are writing and how much that you would be comfortable with writing, and you will find that you fit in just right. It takes some practice, it takes some thinking in what you want to do from the very beginning to do these things, but you will get there. It's no rush. Rule number 4, all voice communications are in character or out of character based on the norms of the campaign or the server. Make sure to find out in advance. Rule number 5, before you do something that will involve major change of state with another player and players, make sure to get full consent from other player and the organizer. This is mostly about annexation or vassalization. So this is quite important because you will also have games where nothing is happening because nobody wants to upset the other player. But at the same time, you kind of want to advance the story and everything, so just make sure to get consent from the other player, and even if they don't give you consent, they're like, no, I don't want to be vassalized, no, you can't do that. In this case, you go to the organizer and speak to them to see if this is something that is okay and how you would like to proceed. Oftentimes organizers are okay with annexation and vassalization as long as you make proper roleplay and write the proper stories for it. Rule number 6, if you wish to go to war, make sure the justification, aka casus belli, is legitimate. It is announced in the galactic community, and this is to allow the war to take place in diplomatic grounds as well. That's what separates the RP games from the other ones. Unjustified wars can and will be used as a cause for great retribution, will not only result in the reversal of the status quo, but also will probably cost you some lands as a compensation. Rule number 7. If you are pulling ahead of the rest of the galaxy, do not lord over people or threaten them left and right. Don't try to go around bullying them. Either become an isolationist, help others to catch up, or work with the organizers to create some interesting events that can either bring other people up or can bring you down a notch. This is something that the players themselves should be doing themselves, and there are some minority of players, I'm sad to say, that do play this game in order to bully other players and make themselves feel better. This is something that I'm personally very much against, and I will join campaigns and will start playing them in the most competitive way possible if I see people bullying others who do not know the game as much. just to stop them from such actions, because if you have two powers balancing each other out, the person who's being bullied will naturally be pushed towards the other player, and that other player can be like, yeah, why don't you join me and we'll kick this guy's ass. So yeah, this is something very, very important, at least to me. And if you see yourself that you're pulling ahead or falling behind, talk to the other players. They might be very happy to help you out. Maybe you do know the game, but you do not know the mods and the advantages that it brings. Or the other players know the game just a little bit better than you, or they got lucky. There's no shame in asking, but just if you're pulling ahead especially, do not bully other players. That's very much a taboo, very much a no-no when it comes to the Stellaris RP games. Rule number 8. Competitive meta is not an antithesis to RP. RP does not mean to play suboptimally, but to make sure all of your plays make sense in roleplay with both you and other players. Make sure your race, build, and backstory is approved by the organizers. This includes if you want to play a meta build. A meta build does not have to be played in a meta way if you or organizers do not wish for you to pull too far ahead. Now this is important, and what a lot of people do not realize is that meta builds are built to be aggressive early on, because the best way to win in any competitive Stellaris game is to conquer your neighbors very, very quickly, incorporate them into your race, and you will have overall raw resource advantage. That's where all the meta is built about. There's nothing stronger than that. So arguably there are some things that catch up to that with, tech rushing, whatever, but just because you're playing a meta race or want to play a meta race does not mean you're not RP. As long as your RP makes sense, as long as your plays make sense within your RP, it is all perfectly fine. If you notice that you're pulling too far ahead, refer to the rule number 7. And yeah, this does not mean just because you're roleplaying doesn't mean you have to play this silly race. This I like to call it the caveman fetish, because some people's understanding of RP is that you only play these very strange, different kind of races, especially in a very non-competitive way, and that's okay. If they want to play that way, that's completely fine. If you want to play any other way, that's also fine, as long as that all makes sense within the meta and there's no friction. These rules are there to reduce this friction. Rule number 9. Be on time, and if you cannot make it, help organizers find a replacement. When I was organizing, I found that it is very difficult to find replacements for the people, and as the game goes on, you will notice that more and more people will be dropping out. This is kind of inevitable. It's very difficult to retain players, especially if you are just starting out, if your RP campaigns are not a tradition at this point. You will not have very regulars. That's why I recommend playing within a server, because you will oftentimes have people who want to join, they couldn't make it initially, but they can replace other players. Make sure to also establish rules. What happens when people cannot make it to the session? Do they get diplomatic immunity? Are they free real estate? It's completely up to you. Rule number 10. Pretty straightforward. Do not use out-of-character knowledge for in-character decisions. If you have your in-real-life friend or somebody that you convince to join, do not use your out-of-character knowledge, like don't ally with your in-real-life friends, don't conspire against other players outside of the game. I mean, it's okay to conspire and talk. That's still within in-character knowledge. You can say that is in character, but do not use that information to your advantage in your in-character. This is something for role-playing games in general that takes a while for a lot of new players to learn, but you have to separate your out-of-character knowledge with your in-character knowledge, and therefore cannot use it for your in-character decisions. Well, I hope you enjoyed these unspoken rules of RP. If you have any questions about these, I'll be happy to answer in the comments, and I'll see you next time.